Hello everyone, welcome to today's session of Easy Dharma for the Normal. Before we get into today's topic, which is a continuation of the 6 perfections, let me just wait a little while longer to see if anybody is online at the moment. So let me just refresh my screen to see who's online. So before we get into the topic, today's topic is going to be about the perfection of effort, or joyous effort. And if possible, we will go into the next perfection, which is the perfection of concentration. So before we get into these 2 topics for today's session, I want to do a little bit of a recap about what the 6 perfections are. Now, the 6 perfections are 6 methods in which we practice on a day-to-day level in order to progress along the spiritual path. Now, you'll see that they are standard things. The sound is not, Mr. London, good evening. The sound is not good. 2 minutes, everyone. Okay, hopefully the sound has improved. Please let me know if the sound has improved. Good evening to Esther. Thank you for joining today's session. So I'll just wait a couple of minutes to see if the sound is better. Mr. Lam, can you let me know if the sound's better now than it was before? Sorry about that. Happened last week as well. And let me see who else is online. Yvonne is online and Karen is online as well. Oh, Esther says the sound is much better. And Mr. Lam as well. The sound has improved. Thank you very much for letting me know. Sorry about that little technical glitch there. So good evening to all of you. And okay, so I'm just going to do a little bit of a recap because maybe the sound wasn't too good. So what we're going to be talking about is the 6 perfections. I'm actually continuing on the reading of Introduction to Buddhism. And we have reached the section on the 6 perfections. Now, the 6 perfections are 6 things that you practice in daily life, okay? That means when you're going about your daily activities, when you're going to work, when you're taking care of your kids, when you're out and about, these 6 things you should be practicing. And you will see that these 6 things are things that you would normally think about if you're talking about spiritual practice or even secular practice, just improving yourself on a secular level. So these 6 perfections are generosity, which is number 1, morality, which is number 2, patience, number 3, number 4 is effort, joyous effort. Number 5 is concentration, and number 6 is wisdom. So these 3 things that these 6 are things that we should be practicing in. But you see, within the Mahayana path, within Tibetan Buddhism, we elevate these qualities one step even higher. And when you elevate them, they're called the perfection of, for example, generosity, the perfection of morality, the perfection of joyous effort. And the reason why they're called the perfection of is because of one very important thing, and that is your motivation behind practicing that particular quality. So the motivation, as we've discussed in a couple of sessions ago, is called bodhicitta. So bodhicitta is basically a mind frame that is extremely compassionate. And the highest form of compassion within Buddhism is to achieve enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. So in the sessions previously, we did go into a little bit of detail about how you go about generating the mind of bodhicitta. And on our level, we are practicing the aspiring form of bodhicitta, which means that we need to constantly remind ourselves that we are practicing for the benefit of all sentient beings. Then when you practice these 6 qualities in your life with this motivation behind your practicing, your everyday experiences and examples of practicing these 6 qualities, then it becomes the perfection of that particular quality. So that's what we're going to be discussing. We're going to be discussing the 6 perfections. So let me see who has come online. Sukvan, good evening. Kwang Ming, I see, is online. Kin Ho, Munteng, Lily Ong, Tata Ang, and Chung. So it's good to see all of you here. And Yiman is also online. Very good to see all of you here tonight. Thank you for joining. So today I'm going to be talking about the 4th perfection, which is the perfection of effort. Okay, so effort I'm just going to read out a little bit from the book. Effort is a mind that delights in virtue. Effort practiced with bodhicitta motivation is a perfection of effort. Effort is not something to be practiced separately, but a practice that should accompany all virtuous endeavors. Okay, so effort here is talking about when you're engaged in any virtuous activity, when you're engaged in any Dharma work, when you're engaged in your sadhana, when you're engaged in, perhaps you make it a point to go and volunteer at Kechara Soup Kitchen, or maybe you volunteer at Kechara House or in Kechara Forest Retreat. Maybe you like reading Dharma books, okay? You should put effort into doing all of these things. Okay, that's what the effort here means, effort in virtuous activity. Okay, but that's kind of like the general thing that you would think about when you're talking about effort. So you know, within the spiritual path, you think, okay, effort, what do I need to put effort into? I need to put effort into doing my sadhana. I need to put effort into my retreats when I'm doing retreats. I need to put effort into helping others. But there is also another side of the coin to effort. And that is actually effort in stopping yourself from doing non-virtuous activities and actually even neutral activities. So if you're talking about non-virtuous activities, we did talk about it a couple of sessions ago, which was the 10 non-virtues, basically, that I'm sure all of you know by now. So I'm not going to get into that. But it's also things like stopping yourself from being negative, okay? Thinking negatively about your spiritual path, thinking negatively about other people. And I'm going to touch on this in a little while. Okay. When you practice effort as well, because you put effort into the spiritual path, it actually intensifies the 2 aspects of the spiritual path. Now, we know, I think I've explained this before, and I know Pastor David has talked about it as well. There's 2 aspects to spiritual progress. The first is the generation of merits. And I think I'm not going to get into that. Everybody knows what that is. And the second is also the purification of your negative karma. So if you put effort into doing any Dharma activity, and any Dharma activity will have these 2 key components. It will generate merit and it will purify your negative karma. So when you actually put effort into doing any Dharma activity, it actually bolsters the amount of merit that you generate and also increases the amount of negative karma that you purify by engaging in that particular action. Okay, so now getting to a little bit of the nitty-gritty about effort. So the opposite of effort is actually being quite lazy. Before I get into that, if anybody has any questions about this or any other questions about what we've been sharing so far, please do ask and I'll answer them in today's session. So again, if you have any questions or if anything pops up during my explanation, please do ask a question online and you can leave it in the comment section and I'll answer it today. So the opposite side, as I was saying, of effort is laziness. Okay? So within Buddhist practice, there are actually 3 types of laziness. One is procrastination, procrastinating doing something. Another one is actually attraction to meaningless or negative things. And the third is being discouraged. And these all apply to the spiritual path. So for procrastination, for example, let me take the example of procrastination. So procrastination on the spiritual path is that you know that something is good, but you put it off. You procrastinate doing it. Procrastination itself can be quite negative on a secular level, but is even more so negative on a spiritual level. And one of the reasons why is because, say if you know the benefits of perhaps doing a Lama Tsongkhapa retreat, a retreat on the practice of Lama Tsongkhapa, and you know the benefits of doing it, and you kind of have the motivation that you want to do a retreat, but you think that you have too much on your plate at the moment, you're a bit too stressed with work, you've got too many family commitments. You know that if you want to do the retreat, you're going to have to put effort in juggling all of your commitments and at the same time making the planning and getting everything ready for you to do a retreat. So you think, okay, right, my work's a bit busy, I really don't have enough time off from work, I need to look after my family, I need to wind down a little bit after work, so I need to spend time with my friends and maybe go on a short vacation. So I'm not going to do my retreat now. But you put in the back of your head, you know that you really you want to do a retreat, but you keep putting it off. And then you think to yourself, it's the end of the year already, I'm not going to do one this year, maybe I'll do one next year. Then next year comes around. The problems that you were facing originally may have been solved, but what happens is another problem or another issue will arise, which means that again your time is taken up, you have too many commitments to juggle, so you think, okay, maybe I'll put off doing my retreat again, maybe I'll do it next year. So again, next year comes around and lo and behold, your problems originally that you had have all been solved and sorted out, but now you've got a new set of problems, you've got a new set of commitments that you need to be dealing with. So if you procrastinate, what happens is you put off doing Dharma practice, whether it is a retreat, whether it is even in some cases people with their sadhana, in some cases it is doing any other virtuous activity. You put it off and you put it off and you put it off. And so what happens is two things. One is you lose your opportunity to actually practice the Dharma to generate merits. Now, merits themselves on a spiritual level, obviously we know that we need it for spiritual transformation, but actually merits also help on a secular level, on a mundane level. So the more merits you have, the easier things will be in your secular mundane life as well as your spiritual life. So you put off the opportunity to be able to generate those merits. And the second thing is that you lose your opportunity to purify some of that negative karma that we're always talking about. That is, we all know that it's the cause of our problems, especially if you've been studying Buddhism or you're at Kechara. It's one of the basic things that we all know, that our problems and issues that we face in life are all due to our negative karma. So when you procrastinate, you actually put off these two beneficial things. Another way of explaining it, which is a bit more, how should I put it, textbook, is actually dangers of losing your human rebirth. Now, within the Dharma, we say that it's very, very difficult to actually get a human rebirth. So when you've got a human rebirth, you should make the most use of it. To practice the Dharma, to purify your negative karma, so that you can generate the merits again in the future to perhaps even have a human body again. And we shouldn't waste the opportunity that we have at the moment. We should make full use of it. And if you're going to make full use of it, it means that you're not going to procrastinate. Okay? So the actual remedy for the laziness of procrastination is actually to meditate or contemplate on impermanence and the precious human life. Okay? So that actually leads you to have a sense that you really, really want to practice. So that contemplation itself develops a type of effort that overcomes procrastination. The second type of laziness is actually what is known as attraction to meaningless activities. So if you're talking about meaningless activities, it means watching TV for hours on end. You watch one show that you particularly like, and then you see something else on a different channel, so you start watching it, and then that finishes, and then you watch something else, and then you watch something else, and then you watch something else. These days, a lot of people it's not just TV, it's YouTube. I'm sure everybody here has fallen down the rabbit hole that is YouTube many times. When you go on YouTube to watch something, and then there appears a video on the sidebar, and then you click it, and then you watch that, and then another video appears, and that's interesting, and then you type in more videos of the same subject or whatever, and then you look at the time, and it's been an hour, 2 hours. I know some people that can go 3-4 hours just watching YouTube. And it's a literal rabbit hole. You just fall down and you can't get out. That is what is known in the text as attraction to meaningless activities. Because you need to ask yourself, when you were on YouTube, did you actually watch something that was added value to your life? Did you watch something that improved you in some way, whether it is secularly or spiritually? Did it have a benefit? And if it didn't, then it was pointless. We all do it. I've done it many times, and I'm sure all of you have done it as well. But it's not just things like TV and YouTube, it's also spending hours at the mamak stall. You go out with your friends to yum cha, and then it's like 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours gone. And then you're like, where did the time go? We were having fun. And then by the end of it, you get home, and then you kind of wonder to yourself, what did we actually spend the last couple of hours talking about? Okay? Did it have an impact? Did it improve you in any way? Did it improve you secularly? Did it improve you spiritually? Or did it lead towards something like idle chatter, gossiping even perhaps? And maybe it could have deteriorated further into more negative things when it comes to idle chatter and gossiping, which usually end up in as the negative. I mean, those two are considered two of the non-virtues anyway, but the main non-virtue with your speech is actually lying. And idle chatter and gossip, if not controlled at a certain point, actually eventually lead on to lying. So here you see that what you were engaging in was actually pointless. It didn't have a purpose for your spiritual transformation, and it probably didn't have a purpose for your secular everyday progress either. Just generally making yourself a better person. Okay, so that's attraction to meaningless activities, but it also has one additional factor, just imagine the time that you and effort that you put in to doing these things. Okay? I had a friend back home whose name was John, and he was very, very addicted to his TV shows. So he had a job, and he had, he worked, was it 9 to 5 probably, if I remember correctly, and then all he would do is he would go home and he would watch his TV shows. And he wouldn't do anything else. Okay? But he would actually make effort to make sure that he was home in time so he could watch those TV shows because they were on at a certain time. So he actually put effort into cooking his dinner during his lunch break. Okay, it's a bit extreme, but bear with me. He used to cook his dinner during his lunch break so he could eat his dinner on the way home, because I lived in London, so we used public transport. So he would eat his dinner on the way home so that when he got home, he didn't have to cook and eat his dinner. He'd already done it. So just imagine that the effort that he actually had to put in to cooking his dinner every single day during his lunch break, and the effort that he went into to make sure that he could indulge in a activity that wasn't meaningless. That is meaningless, which is just watching TV. And these weren't TV shows that were about anything. It was just pure drama, melodrama. So it didn't improve him in any way. Okay, I see I have a question. Let me see Jerry's online. Good evening. Mr. Lam asks, is reading a book, e.g. Obama's latest book released, considered a neutral activity or non-virtuous activity? The reader is actually picking up the wisdom of an ex-leader of a big country to learn and improve himself. Okay, it's a very good question. This would actually be classed as it depends. This would actually depend on your motivation for reading the book. If you're reading the book purely for entertainment purposes or to pass the time, or because you just like knowing about world leaders or influential people and you just want to know more about their lives just to pass the time, then it's actually considered a neutral / non-virtuous activity, and I will explain that in a little bit. If, however, you're reading the book because you think that from the book you can gain some wisdom about how Obama ruled his nation, or about how to improve yourself, or even just looking for inspiration, because people's stories, their backgrounds, you can actually draw inspiration from their stories. And this inspiration can actually be applied towards your spiritual journey. If it's not applied towards your spiritual journey, you can also apply that inspiration that they give you towards your secular life. So that would actually be, if it's towards a secular perspective, that will be a neutral activity. If it is towards your spiritual activity or your spiritual journey, then it would be considered a virtuous activity. And by spiritual, it's not just about reading the stories of, for example, the High Lamas, because that's spiritual in some way. They did this, they practiced this deity, and they did that. It gives you inspiration to actually do formal Dharma practice, as in what I term as formal, which is, deity practices or reciting mantras and things like that. But the most part of Dharma practice, in my opinion, is actually what I like to term informal Dharma practice, which is like the 6 perfections. It's things that you do every day. And the story of somebody like Obama can be inspirational for that. You can draw wisdom from it. I don't know the story, so I can't go into the actual details of it, but I'm sure that you can glean instances where he has had to use or apply certain positive qualities towards the work that he did. and you can take inspiration from that and use it on your own spiritual path. Now, going back to doing it as an activity that is just reading it just for the sake of entertainment purposes, or because you just want to know about them, not necessarily because you have the thinking or the mindset that maybe it can improve you, just on the, wanting to know about them. It's neutral/negative. The reason why it's neutral/negative, it's neutral because you're not actually creating any negative karma from it. It's not a negative action per se, because you are not harming somebody. All right? But it's /negative because ultimately all neutral activities turn negative. And the reason they turn negative is because they don't lead you to improve yourself in any way. If they don't lead you to improve yourself, what they do, they're just reinforcing the habits that are keeping you bound where you are in this life, and then within samsara on the bigger scale of it. So it is neutral to begin with, but ultimately ends up being negative. Okay? So, that's a very good question. So coming back to the attachment to non-virtuous activities. So the way to overcome this laziness is actually to meditate or contemplate on the faults of samsara, the things that are wrong with samsara, and actually contemplate on the negative qualities of that particular activity. For example, I gave the story of watching TV or of watching YouTube, and it has negative qualities because it stops you from putting energy into bettering yourself, and it only seeks to keep you bound to samsara. For example, people love watching Korean dramas, and Korean dramas all about what I know is all about love stories. Okay, now if you have like who's going out with who, or who's together with who, I'm sure Korean drama has a lot more than that, but predominantly what I hear from the people around me is it's all about the love story and the build up of the love story over many episodes, and then what happens, and then somebody comes along and gets in the way, and then there's a whole big situation, and then so how do you, for most people it's fun, and it is fun, but it actually reinforces the idea of needing a partner. Not only that, but it also kind of gives a false appearance of what a relationship should actually be like, because it's very fake, it's very, it's all very nice, very lovey-dovey, they all get along with each other, they don't have any problems, they don't have to sort out issues between themselves, etc., etc., etc. But this is not actually the way that relationships should work, okay? And talking about relationships, if you want to know more about relationships, you should join the Spiritual Saturday reading of Conversations in Love, which is on the Kechara Forest Retreat Facebook page. So I'm not going to get into that, okay? And so I've covered two types of laziness so far: procrastination and the attraction to meaningless activities. The third type of laziness is actually going to probably strike a chord with most of the people that are watching this live streaming, and that is discouragement. Okay? Now this discouragement is actually towards the spiritual path. It's towards bettering yourself. It's towards gaining enlightenment. Now, there comes a time when we practice the Dharma, when you think to yourself, oh, that person has improved quite a lot. I can see that that person has changed themselves quite a lot by practicing the Dharma. But I don't actually see that level of change within me. Maybe I'm not practicing the Dharma right. So you get discouraged. Another factor is that when we talk about the lives, when we read about the lives and we study the lives of the Holy Masters, and maybe even someone like Tanga Rinpoche, when we read his life story about how he helped others, how he was very kind, how he was very compassionate, how he helped others solve their problems and their issues through a variety of different means. We think to ourselves that, you know what, I don't ever think I'm going to be that person, because it's just too far removed from where I am now. It's just so far. Refresh my screen because okay, so we think it's too far removed, and then we look at the Buddhas, we look at Manjushri, we look at Chenrezig, and we think, I can never achieve that state, and maybe if I can achieve that state, it's going to take me lifetimes to achieve it, so I'm not actually going to practice. Maybe I don't need to practice all of that now because I'm not going to achieve it. And this actually reminds me of something that Rinpoche once said to me. Well, a couple of us actually. And he said that whenever we put a Buddha figure, he was talking about Buddha statues, whenever we put a Buddha statue on the altar and then we make offerings to it, we venerate the Buddha statue, we venerate the Buddha, or the three jewels, or the gurus, or the deities that we're practicing. It is good because we're venerating them. It is good because we're making offerings to them. It's good because we are offering them a high place within our lives. But what a lot of people tend to do is fall into one very, very negative habit, and that is to create a distance between yourself and the Buddha. When you put a Buddha on a pedestal, you are showing him the respect that the Buddha needs. Not needs, but you are showing him the respect that, from your point of view, you are showing that you are venerating the Buddha, okay? But you're not actually just venerating the Buddha for the sake of worshipping him. You're actually venerating the Buddha to achieve the same qualities as the Buddha. But we always tend to have this gap between ourselves and an enlightened being. And because we create that distance between ourselves and an enlightened being, we can get discouraged. So this was at a point where I was being a little bit discouraged myself about practicing the Dharma, and Rinpoche gave this very short little explanation as I've just done it now, but it made a very, very big impact in my mind that we need to change the way we think about the enlightened beings. Okay? When you change the way you think about them, you need to always keep the in your mind that you can achieve Buddhahood. So you need to aim for it. Whether you achieve it in this life or not doesn't matter. You need to put the effort into achieving that. Okay? The second way that people get discouraged is they think that they haven't transformed enough. Okay? But I guarantee you, if you have been practicing the Dharma properly, okay, even for say 6 months to a year, you are actually going to have transformed your mind in some way or another. And for most people, this is actually going to start very, very small. So the way to overcome this type of laziness, of being discouraged, is to actually contemplate on the fact of how much you have transformed. How much you have transformed is because that you're practicing the Dharma, So you need to concentrate on that. You need to focus on that. And you need to contemplate it. So for example, you might have seen that you have become a little bit more compassionate towards the people around you. Maybe towards your partner, maybe towards your children. Has your compassion increased towards them a little bit? If it has, that is a transformation. Do not actually get discouraged that you haven't transformed so you're compassionate to the entire world. Everybody you come across, you're compassionate towards them. Okay? Because spiritual practice is a process. It's a transformation. It doesn't happen instantaneously. But if you have noticed that you do have some positive qualities that have changed your life in a beneficial way, concentrate on those. And when you focus on those, it stops you from actually being discouraged. So, those are the 3 types of laziness that the perfection of effort overcomes. Okay, so let's see what else. Okay, so within the texts there are 3 types of effort. The first type of effort, okay, is known as armor-like effort. Armor as in what a warrior wears into battle. He wears armor. Armor-like effort. This is actually, what this actually means is it's actually talking about your determination to succeed in doing something when you start a virtuous activity. Give you an example. Earlier we were talking about retreats. So when you want to put effort into organizing a retreat, for example, and you want to make time and change things around in your schedule to make time for it, when you want to make sure all the preparations are done, and you have that strong determination to engage in a retreat, that is known as armor-like effort. So you need to keep this determination strong throughout anything you do in preparation or the actual retreat itself. Okay? The third type of effort is the effort of gathering virtuous dharmas, which actually means that when you are practicing the Dharma, whether it is formal Dharma like a retreat or informal Dharma like overcoming a particular negative quality that you might have or developing a positive quality that you want, you apply effort in doing that. Okay? And the third type of effort, which I'm going to have to refer to the book because I cannot remember off the top of my head. Okay, the effort of benefiting others. Okay? Which is the effort that you put in when you strive to benefit living beings. Okay? So these are the types of the 3 types of effort. Now, coupled with that, I want to tell a little story. Tsamma Rinpoche started a project, and it's known as the Rume Tanga project. Now, these tangas actually show a variety of deities together with Doje Shugden. And these are available for free download in high resolution on tsammarinpoche.com. And one of the reasons that Rinpoche wanted all of these available is because Rinpoche knew that it's very, very hard to get iconographically correct images of deities that you can just download for free in high resolution. So Rinpoche started a project where we have employed Tanga artists in Nepal, and we are making various tankas of different deities. And originally these deities were very, very common deities that we know in Kechara. But over time, as Rinpoche said that he wanted to continue with this project, we looked into some of the more rare deities. And there was one particular rare deity that Rinpoche found, and Rinpoche had us do a tanka of. And the name of this deity is Vajra Raksha. So Vajra means diamond-like or adamantine, and Raksha actually means protection. So this, you can translate the name of this deity as adamantine protection. Okay, and one very interesting, you can actually see this Tanga on senrinpoche.com on the Rume Tankas section. There is actually a particular deity, and his name, is Vajrayaksha. His iconography is very, very unique. And this is one of the reasons that Rinpoche was originally drawn to this deity. So when we were researching this deity more, when we found out who he was, the benefits of doing his practice, where his practice comes from, Rinpoche was very, very excited about this particular deity. And we did a short article on this particular deity. So this deity actually has a white face, blue hair, he has red torso and arms, and blue legs. So he's very multicolored. And he sits on a moon disc on top of a lotus, and the petals of the lotus are again blue, white, and red. So the same color as this particular deity. And this deity actually, what he holds is very unique. He actually holds a piece of armor. Okay? Now, the symbolism of this is that this deity actually will put the armor onto you, tie it to secure it, and then put a helmet on top of your head. So it's basically like this deity is helping you to prepare to go to war. But what this war isn't an actual a physical war. This war is actually with your negative qualities. This war is with your three poisons: your ignorance, your attachment, and your hatred. Now, this armor is actually the armor of compassion that this particular deity bestows on you. He gives you the armor of compassion. And the armor of compassion helps you to do one very, very important thing. And that is to practice joyous effort, to put effort in any Dharma practice that you're going to do. So when you do the mantra of this particular deity, it actually is said to increase your joyous effort and your compassion. Because one thing is, without compassion, your joyous effort is going to be very, very small. Okay? When you take, however, the bodhicitta motivation, okay, the compassionate motivation to help all sentient beings, and when you work on it and you change your mind towards selfishness, and when you switch it towards being compassionate for all sentient beings, this really gives you a very, very strong push of effort in any of the Dharma practice that you do. So Rinpoche was very, very strong in getting us to research more about this deity, and the information that we did find is available online. So this deity himself actually helps you to, when you engage in his practice, helps you to develop that joyous effort. And that joyous effort comes from compassion. So I just wanted to share a little bit of that. Now we have a question by Iman. Pastor Niral, just now you said that many of us create a distance gap between ourselves and the Buddha. Sorry, I didn't catch if you have addressed the following questions. If that's the case, what should we do? What can we do to close the gap? And why is it crucial to close the gap? Thanks. Okay, so I'll explain a little bit more. There is an actual gap between us and the Buddha. And the gap is that the Buddha actually put in all of this effort to transform his mind to achieve Buddhahood, as all the other enlightened beings did. Now, that is a gap due to realization, that is a gap due to attainments. Now, the gap is there. What I'm talking about is the gap that makes you think that you cannot achieve that, okay? Or that you cannot do things now that will lead you to achieving that in the future. You think, I'm not going to achieve it in this life. Maybe I'm not going to achieve enlightenment within the next 10 lives. I am just going to not do any Dharma practice at the moment, or do very, very minimal Dharma practice. And, eventually 100, 200, 300 lifetimes down the line, I'm going to achieve enlightenment, okay? So that's the wrong way of thinking it. The correct way of thinking is I can achieve enlightenment, and I'm going to try my hardest in this life to achieve enlightenment. If I haven't achieved it at the point of my death, never mind. I will have generated enough merits to take a future rebirth where I can meet the Dharma and practice again. That's how you should think. Okay? How you close the gap, okay, is to actually meditate or just contemplate on the fact that none of the enlightened beings would have taught the Dharma if you couldn't do it. If Buddha Shakyamuni didn't teach the Dharma, okay, he wouldn't have taught the Dharma if people cannot achieve his state, the state of Buddhahood, the state of enlightenment. Why would the Buddha have even taught anything if he knows that nobody around him, nobody in the world can achieve enlightenment? And you're one of those people. But obviously the Buddha did teach. The Buddha taught, so people have the means and the methods of practicing. And it's not just the Buddha. Look at all of the enlightened beings since that time. Think of Lama Tsongkhapa. Think about what he did. He got all the teachings together and explained them in a way that was revolutionary, that people could understand better on an easier level. Think of all of the lineage masters, all the way down to Tsamma Rinpoche. If Tsamma Rinpoche didn't think that you could achieve enlightenment, why would he have done any of this? Why did Rinpoche start Kechara House? Why did Rinpoche start Kechara Forest Retreat? Why did Rinpoche start tsamrinpoche.com? Why did Rinpoche start any of the websites? And Facebook and Instagram and Pinterest and any of this? This was a way to show you that he was sharing the methods that you can actually use and utilize on your path towards enlightenment. So you need to think about that. When you think about that the actual holy beings, enlightened beings, your guru taught the Dharma. The Dharma is only for one purpose, enlightenment. So the very fact that the Guru taught this, that the Buddha taught, is something that you should concentrate on. Okay? When you concentrate on that, the thinking that, I will, I'll achieve enlightenment 200, 300 lifetimes away, so I'm just going to do a little bit of Dharma. That thought, it will no longer exist. Because you know that the Dharma can transform you now. And if it can transform you now, then you can definitely achieve enlightenment. Okay? So that is the main way of closing that gap between yourself and the enlightened beings. Another way to do it is actually to remind yourself when you're in front of your altar, when you have your statues in front of you, when you are laying out your offerings, is to always remind yourself, I am making these offerings so I can achieve your state. Okay? There is in the dedication, in the completion dedication that we do, that dedication basically says, may I, help sentient, I'm paraphrasing and elaborating a little bit, may I help to transform and take all sentient beings to the level of the Guru Buddha. May I place all sentient beings in enlightenment, into the state of the Guru Buddha. Okay? So that dedication in itself is saying that you should take the compassionate responsibility to help take everybody to enlightenment. So if you can take everybody to enlightenment, obviously you can get there yourself. And it doesn't have to take 500, 600 lifetimes to do. It can be done within either this lifetime or a couple of lifetimes, but it's not that. If you put the effort into it and you're practicing the sixth perfection, it doesn't have to go that, it doesn't have to be that long. Hopefully that's answered your question. Got a message from Chung. Please read the stories about the 84 Mahasiddhas who, despite their strong delusions, through the practice of devotion to the Master, obtained enlightenment in one lifetime. Well, correct. Chung made a very good point. You can also read the life stories of 84 Mahasiddhas. You can read the life stories of other lamas, high beings, Lama Tsongkhapa, Tsemrinpoche, for example, that you can draw inspiration from that. So that kind of shortens this distance that we put between ourselves and an enlightened being. Okay, so now I'm thinking whether I should actually move on to mental stabilization or not, because it is 10:20 at the moment. Maybe I will leave that for next week. So if anybody has any more questions, please ask them now. Let's see. There's actually no way that I'll be able to finish mental stabilization within the short amount of time. So, okay. So, question for all of you out there: How have you practiced effort within the spiritual path? How have you put effort into doing some sort of virtuous activity? Okay, because it's good that you not only hear about these qualities, but you actually think about how you put these qualities into practice. So if you could tell me how you've put effort into practice when you're practicing, when you're doing Dharma. Okay, so I'll wait for your comments. One thing that I wanted to mention was here the six perfections are. When you talk about the six perfections, they're segregated. You've got generosity, you've got moral discipline, you've got patience, and you've got choice effort, and you've got on and on and on. They're separated. But actually, when you practice the six perfections, you actually practice them together. Okay? I'll give you an example. When you are, say you've had a very long day, and that you know that you need to log on to Kechara.com because the Tsemrinpoche Swift Return Prayer is online, but you're very tired after work, and you come home and you're sitting on your sofa. You've just had a nice dinner, and it's almost time for Tsemrinpoche Swift Reincarnation Puja on Facebook. And then you think to yourself, how am I going to, you're thinking, should I not? And then, yes, you do. Here you're actually practicing a couple of things at the same time, a couple of the perfections at the same time. One, obviously, you're practicing effort. You're putting effort into doing something. Secondly, you're also actually practicing morality. And the reason why you're practicing morality is because you're actually doing something good. You're doing something virtuous. Okay? Perhaps during the puja, you make offerings on your altar and then join the puja. Here, you're actually practicing generosity. You're making offerings to the three jewels. So you're practicing generosity as well. So you see, the six perfections are not practiced individually. They're enumerated individually, meaning that you explain them individually as these six things. But when you put it into practice, it is more than likely a couple of them at the same time. Okay? I don't think anybody wants to talk to me tonight. Nobody's answering my question. Okay. Anybody want to say how they put effort into practicing the Dharma? Or how they, and just an example of how you have put effort into practicing the Dharma. Okay, Mr. Lam says, for me to put effort into Dharma practice is to cease procrastination and make more offerings along the journey. Yeah, that's a perfect example of putting effort in. Okay? Because 100% in our day and age, when our, with all the things going on in our lives and all the ways, all the different things that we take as entertainment, it is very, very easy to procrastinate doing something. Okay? And obviously, yes, we should put effort into it. It's procrastination is a thing that everybody has in one form or another. Some of us have more energy of procrastination than other people, and yes, we should overcome that by putting in effort. Chung says, is effort when there is no exertion beyond our comfort zones? Yes. Okay? And there's a reason for that. You can put effort into doing something. I'm just giving very, very basic examples. Doing water offerings. You might make the strong determination to make 100 water offerings every single day. Okay? Now, 100 water offerings every single day isn't going to take you that much out of your comfort zone. But you're still putting effort into doing it. Maybe you do have the time to do it. You do have the opportunity to do it. So you put effort into doing it. Okay? That hasn't taken you out of your comfort zone. Okay? So it is still effort. And it's still classed as effort. But, for example, there are forms of effort which do take you out of your comfort zone. Okay? For example, if I watch YouTube 2 hours every day, I'm going to cut it down to an hour every day and use that additional hour that I'm now saved to do something virtuous. That is going to push you out of your comfort zone. And when it pushes you out of your comfort zone, the effort that you need to put in is obviously going to be a lot harder than if you were within your own comfort zone. At the same time, the benefit you gain from doing that is actually much, much bigger. Why? Because of the amount of energy you have to put into doing it. Because you're going outside of your comfort zone. And I'm not just talking about physical energy, it can also be mental energy. Okay? So you put that mental energy into stopping yourself. Nope, I'm only going to watch YouTube for an hour today, and that's it. You put the mental energy in, and then you stop yourself from watching YouTube for another hour, and you spend that other hour doing something virtuous. Maybe you make offerings. Maybe you go and help somebody. Maybe you can do anything. That effort, that amount of effort that you put in to do it, actually has an impact on the amount of merits that you will generate and the amount of negative karma that you purify if you have set your motivation at the beginning and after the particular action you have done your dedication. This is a very good question from Chung. Okay, so I don't actually see any more questions today, so I am going to end there. So I will start the perfection of mental stabilization next week. Before I go, these sessions are sponsored. Thank you to the sponsors for making it, for allowing us to have these sharing sessions with you and making this possible. So today's session is sponsored by Melvin Cheong. May the merit accumulated benefit all sentient beings in the Buddha Dharma, and may my Guru Tsam Rinpoche's incarnation swiftly return. To a sponsor who wants to remain anonymous, dedicated towards all living beings' liberation from suffering and attainment of compassion, wisdom, and true happiness. Another anonymous one, to Lo Beng Hong and family, may the Guru and Dorje Shugden bless and guide them. And from Mr. Lam, may the Dharma pervade in all directions. May His Eminence Sen Rinpoche return swiftly to Kechara Forest Retreat to turn the wheel of Dharma. And by a sponsor named, please excuse me if I don't get your name right, Napanachak Klatabtim Gate Gate Paragate Bodhisoha. Okay, very nice mantra there as the dedication. So thank you all for joining, and I will see you next week for the continuation of the 6 perfections when I'll be talking about mental stabilization. Thank you. Good night. Keep safe and see you next week.